city under attack, and one man under fire.
This is the place.
A violent invasion of his home and his family.
Any news of my daughter?
Not yet, but as soon as we hear anything, we'll let you know.
He's back. Charles Bronson.
And you out.
Fighting back in Death Wish 2.
He killed 9 people in New York City 4 years ago.
Now he's face to face with the filth of the city. If the police can't clean up the streets, he will. His way.
Doesn't it make you wonder what he may be doing at night?
Where do you think I've been?
Killing muggers?
For every criminal, he's a nightmare come alive. In a city of fear, vengeance is his. Charles Bronson, Death Wish 2.
Death Wish 2 is a 1982 American vigilante action thriller film directed and co-edited by Michael Winner. It was the first of 4 sequels to the 1974 film Death Wish. The sequel was produced by Cannon Films, which had purchased the rights to the Death Wish concept from Dino De Laurentiis. Cannon executive Menahem Golan planned to direct the film, but Winner returned on Bronson's assistance. The soundtrack was composed by guitarist Jimmy Page, and Death Wish 2 was released in the United States in February 1982.
A film called Death Wish, wherein he played a New York businessman whose family is raped and ravished and generally ill-treated by muggers, and who consequently goes on a one-man rampage, killing muggers on sight. It was an exceedingly violent film and therefore made a vast fortune at the box office. That being so, it's surprising that it's taken Mr. Bronson and the British director Michael Winner such a long time to get around to the sequel. But in the end, of course, money calls. And now the sequel, Death Wish 2, is being filmed in Los Angeles. The same team, the stone-faced Bronson and the ever-smiling Mr. Winner, are again involved, and so when we arrived on the location, Ireland, here Mr. Winner, modest and self-effacing as ever, talks about shooting on location.
I've always shot on location. Years ago I used to make documentaries with a crew of 2 people, me and the cameraman, and when I first went into a studio at Pinewood, which was meant to be very grand, it was quite awful. There were lots of rotten cardboard sets with net curtains over the windows because there was no view outside, and I thought, what is this what I've risen to? In that case I'll go back to where it's all there. And of course on location the thing is built by the type of people or the type of society you're filming. The streets, the houses, the rooms, all smack of the authenticity of the place. We pull the real people off the street. We've given up extras. We use all the real people, which you can do here. I go to a crowd and say, let's have you and you and you and you, and we give them a ticket, and at the end of the day we pay them. In a minute. Now I need a courting couple. Where's a courting couple? I want 2 people in love. Well, all right, we have no one in love, that's fine. We better take somebody not in love then. Oh, right. Well, you're too young to be in love with him. This is a daughter. We've changed it. Hold her hand. It's all right, you won't get arrested. Now stand here, and when the first member of the band here, you walk through. Just walk through here. Okay. Don't look at the camera. Be talking to your daughter, right? Oh. Don't look at the camera. Look at the band. Talk to your daughter. Okay, here we go. Technical problem.
Michael was an editor, and he directs like an editor. He never does a master shot. A master shot is when you shoot the entire sequence in one time and then you punch up your key moments. Michael just goes right up for the throat and punches up the key moments, and you really have to be on your toes to keep up with it.
380, take two. Band playing, background. Look round, darling, look round. Step out. Step out. Cut. Very good. How was that? Very good.
I would have thought in the beginning, before they worked together, that those two Charlie wouldn't have hit it off with Michael, but he did. They're both Scorpio, of course, which Michael's fond of reminding me that I don't stand a chance being a mere Taurus person between two Scorpios, but I don't really believe in astrology, but he has mentioned that once or twice.
He's a Scorpio, you see, as I am, and we're very positive thinkers. We take a situation and make the best of it. He's a man of few words. I'm perhaps sometimes a man of more than a few words, but, you know, he can come on a set with me and just with a few brief words or directions about what I want to do in the mood, in seconds, it's going to be done. We don't always agree on everything, but we argue it out, and we hold our ground.
Full load? That was no good.
I just thought you were going to cue me. I was waiting for you to tell me.
Beg your pardon.
All right.
Thank you, sir. Literally half a second after then, just as much as not to be covered, sir. Charles is very good at looking intense, and as if he means business. He's wonderful at looking as if, even in preparation, he is intending to carry it through. He's in fact a very jolly man, and a very funny man who loves a laugh. That's not a character that he puts out on the screen much, or even in personal life. But quite honestly, if you have to spend time with someone on a set, as you do, to spend time with the Charles Bronson of the movies would be horrific. To spend time with a real man is actually very good fun. No, you are looking at the flasher. She is looking at the thing. She don't know from nothing, this girl. She's totally gone. You are looking at the flasher, darling. And she is, that's what she is.
Oh.
Now, what do you do, darling? Get what to say.
I do nothing. I just shield her from life and turn her away or something.
I've known Jill since she was an actress in England in 1950, earlier than I care to mention, for both of us. And the part she plays is a small but important role of a radio reporter. It's not small, it's an important part. And I think she's very good for it. You know, it's not a part, quite honestly, one's going to get Jane Fonda or Faye Dunaway, but I think for the weight of the part, Jill is excellent.
381, take four.
Ready? Background moving?
Charlie and I are taking his daughter out for a day. She lives in a hospital because she's catatonic ever since she was raped. Her mother was murdered in the first Death Wish. And we're giving her a nice outing.
But I'll tell you what. Choose whatever you want from this table. I'll go off and buy the others.
It's just a happy scene to set up what is to come.
Background action. And muggers. This day also introduces, as it were, the baddies of this film, who are 5 in number, because as Mr. Bronson is buying an ice cream, they jostle the crowd and steal his wallet. So it's the first introduction of the shadow upon the rather picture book beauty of the early part.
Hey!
Well, of course, the idea of vigilantes is awful. It's not a theme that I approve of, but the picture doesn't say go and get a gun and kill your local mugger. The picture says society has reached this extraordinary point where people are so desperate for law and order that anyone who does this would be applauded. Now, people did applaud the first film. I believe they'll applaud the second film. I think this is unfortunate, but it certainly shows a mad, pathetic desire to clean up their lives at any cost. All right, now form the line again. Form the whole line here. Camera back here. Form the whole line.
All right, everybody that was in this line, back please here.
I tend to make so many films about violence because people ask me to. In fact, I'd rather be making romantic comedies, but I'm very seldom asked to do that. And eventually you either have to do as you are asked, which is what people think they will make money on by your doing it, or you sit at home and do the garden for a very long time, possibly forever. And whilst I like gardening, I also like making films.
Well, at least he's forthright about his motives. Did you notice, by the way, how he called Mr. Bronson Sir? He always addresses his stars thus, as if a film director served in the office of some kind of butler. Very polite.
The reviews for Death Wish 2 were quite mixed, with many critics finding it a more exploitative and less nuanced sequel to the original Death Wish. On the other hand, some viewers appreciated the pure revenge-driven narrative, noting its graphic violence and fast-paced action. It seemed like a film that appeals to fans of gritty action, but struggles to win over critics looking for depth.
Charles Bronson and Michael Winner made the very violent, very controversial, very successful Death Wish, and now they've made a sequel, Death Wish 2, which features Charles Bronson again as the vigilante. This time he cruises the streets of Hollywood looking for more human scum to bump off when first his housekeeper is gang raped and then his daughter impaled on a railing. It seems particularly bad luck on the daughter, who's autistic anyway after her first rape in Death Wish 1. But Bronson, it seems, just isn't using the right toothpaste. Every time he appears up an alley, someone gets wasted. The film has already been cut by the censor, and I, for one, am not fighting to see the outtakes. In the past, Michael Winner has always been very shrewd about his films. He's quick to point out that a critical success means nothing at the box office. Well, he's certainly sunk below the navel with this one, and it's a pretty horrendous reflection of what he believes will pay in the sticks. Actually, I felt as much shock horror over Jill Allen's acting as I did over the rape. No doubt she was an unavoidable part of the package when Winner cast Bronson, as she's married to the star. But oh boy, playing a glamorous radio reporter who's researching an article on crime in Los Angeles, she is memorably awful, waving her long nose about and being flirtatious in the middle of all the death and rape. She says to Bronson on the night of the murders, "If you're feeling a bit low, why don't you come over to my place?" Very appropriate. Is it all a giant send-up? Knowing of Michael's wild sense of humour, I do rather wonder. There are signs of this not just in such fine details as the last remaining rapist getting fried in an electric shock machine at the psychiatric hospital, but in the casting of some of the smaller parts. A psychiatrist, for example, who naturally represents weak, craven liberalism, has stumbled straight out of Not the 9 O'Clock News, with a mad grin and a huge shock of black hair. Perhaps it's not surprising that Charles Bronson, even in his avenging commando's berry, looks a trifle zonked out by it all. No doubt Death Wish 2 will be a huge box office success, but it might also turn out to be a cult movie for audiences who enjoy trying to work out what the hell Michael Winner was playing at.
First, Gene begins with Charles Bronson's Death Wish 2.
Well, the first Death Wish, made in 1974, found a wildly enthusiastic audience thrilling to its theme of revenge, as Charles Bronson played a mild-mannered New York architect who turned into a one-man hit squad after his wife was murdered and his daughter raped by a bunch of stoned thugs. In that first film, Bronson was captured by New York police but let go in secret because he was so popular with the citizens and because his one-man vigilante action had indeed reduced street crime. In the new film, Death Wish 2, Bronson has moved to Los Angeles with his daughter, but as the film opens, you might suspect, his house is again attacked by thugs, his maid is brutally raped and killed, and his daughter kills herself after she is raped. This is the first reel. And so you might expect Bronson turns into a vigilante again, and he begins hanging out in scuzzy places looking for the creeps who attacked his family. He makes a couple of kills, and word about his attacks travel from the L.A. police to the New York police. One of the dullest conversations in the history of action pictures. But don't worry, violence fans, there's more than talk to this movie. There's plenty of gunplay as Bronson begins his stakeouts. He has the uncanny ability to walk by a garage and, what do you know, a suburban couple is being attacked. And one man gets away. That's good because this is still early in the movie and there's much more killing to be done. Death Wish 2 does develop a certain power because most of us, if not all of us, are frustrated by the slow movement of our criminal justice system, and there is a certain sympathy for the man who wants justice now. But as a movie, Death Wish 2 is far from thrilling. We know, of course, the direction it's going to take, which is revenge, the movie's only theme, a theme that is delivered with all the monotony of a repeating rifle. I wish that this film had at least tried to go off in some new direction at the end, but no, it's just revenge, revenge, revenge.
I don't even think it has an ending. It just stops. It leaves all kinds of things up in the air, and it doesn't resolve anything. It doesn't make a statement. I think the giveaway is that this is a sequel to a movie that was originally made in 1974, and that doesn't show that there's a tremendous demand for the sequel when they waited 8 years to make it. I think it's more of a case of the people behind this film being totally bankrupt for any new ideas. They go back to Charles Bronson's last real big hit and they say, well, let's try to recycle it.
Yeah, well, I think that there is still frustration in the land, and the audience that I saw it with was responding to the film at that level. But then, as the killings continued and there was no new wrinkle, your reaction, you could see how you're being manipulated, and I thought that that's where the film broke down. The other thing is the same strategy that was in the earlier film, which is that the guy doing the killing is white, and most of the guy doing the crimes are Latinos or blacks, and that they do all the cruel actions, and so you have the subtext of white man's revenge, and that's operating.
Something else that was shocking to me was how inept the movie was, just in terms of interesting dialogue, in terms of camera setups and so forth. It really seems awkward. People just seem to be standing around.
It's a slapdash sequel, and we see them all the time.
You got it.
First film was Death Wish 2. Neither Roger or I could recommend the Charles Bronson revenge thriller about a citizen who goes berserk and kills muggers. It had some power, but it was so predictable, so 2 no votes for that.
Looks good. Tastes good, too.
It's a special occasion.
It's an occasion.
It's the first time I've seen you in 4 weeks.
I've been seeing you at the office.
Oh, sure. Last week you sent me a memo.
2 memos. I'm sorry.
What's happening to us, Paul?
Can't stop thinking about Carol.
Well, it hasn't stopped you discussing building services with Elliot. And it hasn't slowed your work down. I'm the only one that's been shut out. I miss you, Paul. Darling, we'll at least stay the night.
I need more time.
I think if this weren't my apartment, I'd walk out now.
From there, the gang go to Bronson's house. They murder, rape the maid in a particularly violent 15 minutes of the film, the first 15 minutes. Then Bronson arrives with his daughter. He's hit over the head. She's kidnapped, taken to a disused factory, raped, and in panic, runs through a plate glass window and falls onto some railings and is impaled. Well, the rape scenes for the British version have been cut by 4 minutes by the British film censor James Furman, who had this to say: "This is about as irresponsible as a filmmaker could be in the treatment of rape for purely commercial ends. This director is simply trying to stir up as much controversy as possible because he's in desperate need of a hit." The press in general have been pretty hostile. The Sunday Times: "Winner appears excited only by the garish nastiness of Sunset Boulevard and the LA slums. The raked buttocks and bloody faces crudely savoring in gross close-up the relish of the revenger as well as the criminal." Time Out: "It's difficult to decide here which appeals to the nastier of audience instincts, the rape or the retribution." Rosalie Shan in the News of the World: "Women would be well advised to see this film. Its one redeeming feature is that it makes you, me, all women realize that it could indeed happen to us." The Daily Express: "Dear God, what have we come to when the basis of an entertainment is that women should be portrayed as nothing more than a couple of lumps of living flesh to be manhandled, sexually assaulted, and slaughtered with an almost casual brutality." And The Times: "A shoddy sequel to Michael Winner's thriller of 1974. Offensive and ridiculous by turns, Winner directs in his customary slapdash manner while the dialogue is farcical." The director is, of course, Michael Winner, who's here. He's one of Britain's most prolific filmmakers. This film is his 21st in 25 years. Can I throw another quote at you, Mr. Winner, from the censor? The censor says the film was cut and shot in order to be sexually exciting, arousing, and titillating as a piece of spectacular entertainment.
Well, the censor's views on the quality of films are a little suspect, as he was a greatly failed television director himself and out of work because he was so awful, and therefore took the job of film censor, which he does appallingly.
That's your
You, of course, read a number of poor reviews because they are more exciting for television.
Well, no, Michael, we tried to find some good ones, and there aren't any, you know.
Well, we'll be happy to send you at least 10
Well,
very good reviews.
in the major newspapers, I'm afraid that was a very... That's why we put in that example from Rosalie Shan,
yes.
Also, because that was the only goodish comment that we could find.
Well, The Guardian was a rave, and I'd call The Guardian
Well, I could go through it.
newspaper.
Alexander Walker said it was over-rape, if you remember, in the evening in the Standard.
Anyway.
Let's not argue about that. Let's talk about the film itself. And I'm just wondering whether you're a little insensitive, because at the moment in this country there's a debate going on about rape. We've had some pretty horrifying cases, and surely as a filmmaker you should be aware of that.
Well, of course I'm aware of it, and filmmakers and dramatists throughout history have always taken their subject matter from what is going on in life and made that into a dramatic story. And regrettably, rape, which is nothing new, regrettably, is a terrible thing, but it does happen. It is very much on the minds of the public, and I see no reason why any subject should be excluded from drama.
Why was it necessary to have the 4 extra minutes of what is a particularly violent
Well,
scene?
I don't think there were 4 extra minutes. I think we're probably about 3 minutes.
That's still a lot.
Which is quite a lot. We never measured it, so I'm guessing. It's certainly no more than 3. You can't say what is necessary, because there is no necessity in drama. The dramatist takes his own choice of what to show or not to show. I can only say that the totally uncut version of the film is being shown to audiences in France, Germany, Italy, Switzerland, Spain, Sweden, Denmark, etc. So the censors there have taken a completely different view, and also in America, where we were offered a totally uncut version of the picture if we wanted to take an X certificate. So the censor here is particularly strong and believes that the adult population of Great Britain are in some way so feeble or stupid that he has to see things for them and cut them for them.
That's your view. Anna Rabin, who's a journalist, writer, broadcaster, we sent you along to see the film. Was the censor wrong, in your opinion?
Well, I regret to say that I don't find it possible to take Death Wish 2 seriously as a film. I was the only woman in the theatre. There were 25 men and me, and the men were cracking up at the dialogue, let alone me. I would have said, to coin a phrase, that Death Wish 2 was Barbara Cartland with blood. Now, let me just expand on that one little bit.
That's a horrifying thought, Barbara Cartland.
I hope it is a horrifying thought, because nothing else is going to horrify you. You are going to make a great deal of money, and as far as I can see, that's all you care about. And fine, that's your judgment on how you run your life.
Isn't that really the point? You know, you said all this in Death Wish 1. What was the reason for making a second one, if not purely for money?
Well, first of all, the reason for making a second one is I thought that the world had changed substantially since Death Wish 1. The mammoth rise in street violence that we had prophesied had come about. Death Wish 1 was on many of the 10 best of the year film lists in America, was treated very seriously, and I think society has now changed enough 8 years later, which is a long time to wait for a sequel, to make a story of some relevance. And the audience is certainly finding that, because the picture is considerably more popular even than the very successful Death Wish 1. I don't know where Anna saw it with 25 people. It must have been very early in the morning.
Leicester Square Theatre at 1:10.
Well, at 1:10, I accept that.
I'm very sorry, Mr. Winner, but I couldn't fit you into my schedule at any other time.
Well, 1:10 is a very flattering time to be on your schedule.
Can I throw a point to you, Anna, that in fact Michael Winner made in an article? He said that he believed the film could save women because it will bring home just how awful rape is. What would you like to say about that?
I would like to say that I think we are talking about rape very gently and nicely, and in fact the sequence, although it involves rape, also involves sodomy, which is something which is not comfortable if you love your partner and wish to be sodomized, and is extremely and excruciatingly painful if you are already in a traumatic situation. So let us stop beating about the bush. It is a very nasty sequence indeed. It is, however, worse than nasty. It is dangerous. It is dangerous because it is coy. You cannot shoot a rape sequence which ever shows female genitalia in a film which is going out on general release, because it would be described as pornographic. So what you're doing is you're selling an image of power and violence, which is in fact worse than a real image. It's an acted image, and therefore it is not realistic, and therefore powerless and violent people, and most powerless people are increasingly violent and increasingly desperate for a moment when they feel they have charge of everything, may try something. And I think that it's not a question of what the censor does or doesn't do with the film. It is a tragedy that a British filmmaker should make such an appalling piece of nonsense, and it should receive general distribution and indeed as much attention as this film has received.
This is the point I wanted to make to Michael Winner, because I'm going to leave for a moment the rape, just talk about how well or badly made the film is. I mean, I know this is a personal thing, but I can think of John Ford westerns, I can think of Hitchcock movies where violent scenes were in, which were much more artistically dealt with. You have turned the camera rather blatantly on a violent act. I mean, that surely shows a lack of imagination as a film director. Well, can't you not make your point in any other way than to be sensational?
Well, you can cut away to the curtains blowing in the window or the clouds scurrying outside. I don't think that any violent act that is shown. And I don't see anything wrong today in showing what goes on in life. It was not done.
But it isn't like that in life. I'm sorry, Mr. Winner.
Well, you don't know, Anna. You've never been raped.
Have you ever asked me?
Well, have you been raped?
Yes, I have, as a matter of technical interest. Is it of any relevance to your film?
No.
That is not how rape takes place. You're dealing with a reenactment.
We dealt with many police and psychiatrist researchers on this picture.
All of whom wanted to make a buck.
Well,
Go on.
You want to make a buck, that's why you're here. You're making a buck. The people we asked guided us very strongly in the matter of rape in Los Angeles, which is where the picture was set. It may interest you, in fact, that none of them were paid, so they didn't want to make a buck, unlike you. And their advice was followed in the details of how the thing was shot. But
personally, I think that's rather cheap, this idea of buck or whatever.
But you cannot shoot rape as rape is, am I not right? Because if you showed actually the penis entering the vagina, you wouldn't get distribution.
Well, I accept that we have to...
So it's not like it is. It's like as much as we can show of it and get it past
and indeed the simulation being shown here is less realistic than what we filmed and which is permitted in all other countries, or nearly every other country, because the censor has made it even less realistic by cutting it, which I think is a mistake dramatically and indeed truthfully. I accept
but I mean, isn't it the centre of the story is not the 15-minute sequence which builds up to no, excuse me, the 15-minute
it felt like about an hour, I must say.
A 15-minute opening sequence which includes the rape sequence. That isn't the movie. The movie is what happens to Paul Kersey when he decides that he can when he decides he can take no more. And he becomes, quote-unquote, a vigilante. What is frightening about your film, excuse me, is not the rape sequence, which everybody's getting so very heated about, which is totally inaccurate, and anybody who ever has anything to do with it will know is totally inaccurate, God help them. What is frightening about your movie is it's so bad, and it cost $9 million. The dialogue is something which you wouldn't give an amateur dramatic group in Toxteth in the Marsh. The acting is wooden. You have a wonderful presence in Bronson, who I don't think has ever really been very well used. You have a dreadfully wooden Jill Ireland saying lines which in an English accent grate on the ear. Very uneven cinematography, very uneven music. It's a bad movie.
All right, you're most entitled to your opinion, but the public are loving it. The public are totally disagreeing with you in their millions in all the countries that it opens, which is about 6 or 7. No, not because it's been sold. You cannot drag people in by selling them anything. The one thing we know for sure in cinema is that what gets people into a cinema is a thing called word of mouth. People come out of the theatre, their pal says to them, where did you go last night? I saw this. Was it good? Yes, they go. Was it good? No, they don't go.
Right, word of mouth from Michael Winner is go, word of mouth from Anna Rayburn. About one final sentence?
One final sentence is that it is obviously very much on Mr. Winner's mind to be sodomized. I hope it happens to him soon.
Michael Winner, Anna Rayburn.
They did it before. They're doing it again. And they'll keep right on doing it unless someone stops them. When murder and rape invade your home, when the cops can't stop it, Bronson will, his way. Charles Bronson in Death Wish 2, rated R.
Opens Friday at Lowe's State, Lowe's Orpheum, and at theaters everywhere.
I'll be there. Are you sure you're free? What else would I be doing?